Want to listen live on the CNBC app.
The sprawling estates and mansions that have languished on the market for years are now getting a second wind thanks to COVID in part. Our Robert Frank has more on that this morning. Hey, Robert.
Good morning, Carl. Wealthy New Yorkers leaving the city are now looking for the 3 Ps. You've got property, privacy, and a pool. Now, the big estates in Westchester, Connecticut, and northern New Jersey that sat on the market for years with a lot of price cuts are now back in demand. This 4-acre waterfront spread in Greenwich just sold to a family moving out of the city. Price tag $17 million, making that the most expensive sale of the year in Connecticut. It's got views of the Long Island Sound, formal gardens, and your own golf green. Now, the Stone Mansion in Alpine, New Jersey, that's been on the market for 10 years. It had its price cut from $65 million to $36 million. Last month, a potential buyer toured the property and offered to rent it for $500,000 a month. That's just to rent it. The owner turned it down in hopes of a sale. And the late Leona Helmsley's former 40-acre estate in Greenwich, called Round Hill Manor, that had been listed once for $50 million, dropped last year to $16.5 million because of a lack of buyers. Now, the broker says he's had 7 showings just in the past month, and there is serious interest because 40 acres, guys, could buy you a lot of social distance. Back to you.
It sure could, Robert, and a lot of home offices too. Robert Frank, thank you.
That's right.
Joining us to discuss the path forward for real estate is the co-founder and CEO of Compass, Robert Refkin. Robert, thanks for being on with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we just heard what Robert Frank was reporting in terms of some of these high-end properties in the suburbs, but in general, we've now got all 50 states in some sort of reopening, and then just today, mortgage application data that's pointing to recovery in home buying as well. What are you seeing at Compass?
Yeah, so at Compass, our year-to-date revenue is actually up 47% over the same period in the prior year. And last week, our agents put 40% more listings into contract, so agree to sell in the same period in the prior year. What we're seeing is an acceleration, the shift from traditional companies to tech-enabled companies, retail stores to Amazon, gyms to Peloton, traditional brokerage firms to Compass. And we've been building for 7 years a technology platform with hundreds of millions of dollars in R&D to help agents grow their business and better serve their clients, being built by the CTO of AI at Microsoft, who came on last year, as well as Greg Hart, who was the 6th most tenured executive at Amazon, creating Alexa and launching Amazon Prime Video, overseeing it there.
So when I hear you put numbers like that out there, how much of this is Compass specific, given the fact that you do have this platform, you do have this technology and these capabilities, and how much of it is a bigger sign or signal that we have seen a bottoming, at least where the housing market is concerned in major metro areas?
So we're in 135 markets, and across all of our markets, we saw a bottom 2 to 3 weeks ago. We have seen in-contract listing activity go up back to pre-COVID levels in over 90% of our markets. Buyers right now are saying to themselves, I've been locked into my space for 3 months, and they're evaluating do they have enough space inside, outside, do they have enough light, do they have the right home office? And if they answer those questions or no, they call their agent. And on top of that, you have record low interest rates, and you have a viewpoint that you're going to get a good price right now. You're not going to get a better price in 2 years.
Robert, are you seeing a shift in demand out of urban areas? And if so, do you think it'll stick?
Yes, we're seeing a shift from highly densely populated areas to less dense areas. On our site, we saw an increase in searches for single-family homes up 40%, while condo co-ops were actually down. Searches for homes that have a pool were up 3 times. Searches for homes with outdoor space up 2 times. And the minimum square footage in a search was 10% higher than pre-COVID levels. I think this is going to be a continuous shift until there's a vaccine.
Well, to that point, Robert, I mean, we keep hearing, especially from the White House, that the promise of the vaccine gets stronger by the day. When do you think we will start talking about value in urban areas, whether that's downtown Austin or San Francisco or Metro DC or Brooklyn, areas where people were locked out because of pricing for a long time?
Yeah, so we have seen a drop in prices of a few points, on average around 5%. The high end has dropped more. That said, asset prices generally increase in a recession, and it's a nice hedge against inflation. And there's more actual buyer activity on our site, as defined by engagement with our agents around homes that they're looking at. And then there actually are new listings coming on our site, as defined by new listing inventory in the market. So the supply demand is still pretty tight with low inventory.
Robert, do you expect this shift toward more space, home office, pool, will stick regardless of a vaccine? Because I imagine a lot of home buying is emotional. People aren't going to forget this period anytime soon. And if they wished they had more space now, that's going to be burned into their psyche, right?
I absolutely agree with that. Buyers have never been so intimately aware of the inadequacies of their home. After 9/11, the market froze in New York for 3 months, but when it bounced back, it was busier than it ever had been. That catastrophe created movement, and I believe the same thing is going to happen here. This catastrophe has locked people in their homes for 3 months. It is creating incentives and emotional reasons to move.
So, Robert, we're talking about increased activity in home buying right now. How is the actual process of listing and selling a home changing, given the fact that we do still have, to a certain extent in certain markets, a lot of shelter-in-place mandates still underway?
Yes, so sellers are now asking, how can you sell my home virtually? How can you market my home virtually? How can you get buyers into my home virtually? At Compass, we launched the Virtual Agent Services suite of tools. So we have virtual showings, live buyer tours, paperless transactions, virtual open houses to help meet those needs. And that's one of the reasons why our agents have gained market share in this downturn.
And I know you touched on this briefly before, but just to dig in a little bit more, what is your outlook for home prices? What are the markets that are poised to be the strongest in the coming months, in the coming year, and how much are mortgage rates factoring into that?
Yeah, so the markets that I believe will increase in prices over the course of this year are markets that are safe havens to the highly densely populated areas in the cities. So that would be the Hamptons, markets in New Jersey and Connecticut. In San Francisco, that could be Sonoma, Napa, Marin. And I also believe that the markets where there's a strong technology presence, say Seattle, Austin, Boulder, San Francisco, that those jobs have for the most part stayed intact. And even in Seattle, you've seen net job growth with companies like Amazon there. And that will help keep prices strong.
Robert Refkin, CEO of Compass, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting us.